Hi, I'm Kenny Coleman, a director for Tanzu Technical Marketing. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how Tanzu Mission Control can manage many Kubernetes edge locations at scale. Tanzu Mission Control is responsible for fleet-wide management. It has extensive capabilities to visualize your entire Kubernetes footprint across many data centers and edge locations. Tanzu Mission Control takes care of lifecycle management with deployment and upgrade capabilities. It displays diagnostic data from extensions and agents that are transmitting data from the cluster, and it also includes data protection services through Velero and has a powerful policy engine that makes configuration management across thousands of clusters easy to manage. In my vSphere environment, I have already deployed a Tanzu Kubernetes Grid management cluster to the main data center. I can now enable Tanzu Mission Control to deploy new workload clusters. In Tanzu Mission Control, I navigate to the administration section and go to the Management Cluster tab, where I can then register a new Tanzu Kubernetes Grid management cluster. This next section requires some simple naming conventions and specifying the cluster group where the cluster will reside. A unique kubectl command line is presented. Copy that, and then go to the management cluster by setting the kubeconfig context back to the management cluster, and then paste the command, where all the services and extensions will be installed. After a few minutes, verify the connection and take a look at the cluster to see that all the agents and extensions are healthy and available. After the management cluster has been added, it's now possible to create and deploy new workload clusters directly from Tanzu Mission Control. This will reduce your total touch points by having it all in a single user interface. Creating a cluster is pretty straightforward. Choose the management cluster in the main data center, and then begin providing placement details for the new workload clusters, such as the data center, resource pool, folder, network, and data store objects. Then provide the static IP address that will function as the Kubernetes API Server Control Plane endpoint. There's an option to add as many workers to the cluster as needed, but in many edge environments, this is probably going to be one. After a few minutes, the cluster will be created, as we can see in my California data center, and it will have all the agents and extensions for Tanzu Mission Control installed so I can see the diagnostic data and it can be visualized. Your edge environments could be running Kubernetes on many different types of infrastructures. But with Tanzu Mission Control, it's possible to manage Kubernetes clusters that could run on any kind of platform, such as OpenShift, GKE, Rancher, and even bare metal. In this scenario, instead of creating a cluster, we will attach a cluster. Attaching a cluster is very simple by providing a name that will be recognized in Tanzu Mission Control and placing it into a cluster group. Use the generated kubectl command line and apply that to your Kubernetes cluster. For this demo, I'm going to attach another cluster that is already running on vSphere in my Tennessee data center. The caveat of an attached cluster is that it doesn't come with any lifecycle management capabilities from Tanzu Mission Control. Those are only available when deployed from Tanzu Kubernetes Grid clusters. But just like before, after a few minutes, the agents and extensions will be installed, and we can visualize the health of the cluster in Tanzu Mission Control. And now that we have tens, hundreds, or even thousands of Kubernetes clusters inside of Tanzu Mission Control, we can create policies that will allow us to manage at scale. There are several out-of-the-box policies that allow you to quickly get started. I have all my clusters in my own cluster group. And as a Tanzu Mission Control administrator, you can create any number of cluster groups and label them however you want. In this example, I'm going to create a new baseline security policy that won't be as restrictive, and I can set the enforcement as a dry run instead of deny. I could also completely disable native pod security policies. This setting allows an edge administrator to set exactly how restrictive your applications could be ran. After the security policy is created, it is then propagated out to all the clusters in the cluster group. I could also set other policies, such as image registry, network, and quota policies that are all available to me. I can even make my own custom policy by going to the templates menu and building a new policy in YAML format that is compatible with OpenPolicy Agent. Then from the assignments menu, the custom policy is available to be applied either to my cluster group or to an individual cluster. Lastly, I can also create mutation policies that instruct Kubernetes to enforce custom defaults during deployment. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out Tanzu's Tech Zone for more tutorials and demos.